The night was moonless and overcast. Pitch black. Perfect. The cultist rebellion on Khorramshahr had been swift and decisive. They had not infiltrated the hierarchy. They had not been subtle. The upsurge of Psykers had caused near pandemonium over the last months. Incursions, explosions, disturbances. All had been put down with alacrity. But they had dragged the defense forces from one end of the continent to another. So eventually, smaller detachments had been broken off from the main elements and scattered across the world in localized reaction forces. But it had not worked. By trying to defend everything, the governor had effectively defended nothing. His meager forces were stretched too thin. When the cultist rebellion began, his forces were like tiny islands in a storm, and were quickly surrounded and overrun by sheer weight of numbers. Now only the scant hives on the world were secure. The 3 great cities held on by a thread, their defences too advanced, guns too many to assail directly. Yet. The cult of the 8 Points was victorious in mere days, but it was not organized. It was a spontaneous rebellion. As such, each of the local leaders were claiming lordship and all credit for the success. They fell on each other. Roaming the plains like huge colonies of ants, they battled to defeat and then absorb the other factions. Thousands died. But it meant that there was confusion and discord at all points, fertile ground for the Iron Hands when they arrived. The decision had been simple. Bring the cultists to battle and wipe them out, as was the Iron Hands' way. Thus did they send out their scout squads. The goal simple: assassinate the leaders of all other factions, unifying the cultists, then draw them to a killing ground, and end the matter. The scouts did not wear the full power armor of the Space Marine proper. They were still in training. They had not yet earned the right to be promoted, to be gifted the black carapace that would act as further defense, but also as their direct conduit and interface with the power armor they all so cherished. The sign of acceptance, a badge of honor, the armor of the full battle brother of the Adeptus Astartes. But they were as strong and swift as any Space Marine. So, like ghosts, the squad was led by their grizzled sergeant directly into another camp. They lived like slaves who had tasted their first freedom and had not handled the emancipation well. Drunk and drugged, intoxicated by their previous startlingly quick victories, their dispositions were more a sea of tents and campfires, a gathering of a huge tribe more than any real army. The scouts eluded or executed the scant sentries and honed in on their target. After only 5 minutes of being in the camp, the 2 other squads had already placed charges and snuck into tents to kill strategically important people, usually discerned by the size of their tent and the amount and quality of its trappings. Squad Ferrum Experivat stalked towards the main central structure at speed. Darting around tents and over sleeping guards, the squad of initiates moved as directed by their sergeant. They surrounded the main tent, then assaulted it as one. There were no brash war cries, no bellowed challenges. They simply moved as one. The huge tent was barreled at, and the 3 went under its canvas after cutting lines. The butchery was brutal and over in a heartbeat. The preacher and his practical harem, his 5 guards, all dead in seconds as they were jumped on by the Marines whilst they drowsed. Explosions tore through the camp, distractions set by their other squads. The exit of each was done without fuss, as they just ran towards the outskirts of the camp, where landspeeder storms were quietly circling in the night. On the morn, this rabble would be in a bloody civil war to see who would claim lordship. They would be absorbed into the greater sect within days. Just as planned. Welcome, gentle listener. I am Voldemort, your faithful servant, and I would like to introduce you to the forces, factions, and units of the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Today, we are to start a run of short entries to explore the progression of a Space Marine, an Adeptus Astartes, from their first real position all the way up to the heady heights of Chapter Master. We will also be covering the Primaris Marines and how their own specialist units function. Now we are in the age Indomitus. Hence we begin today with Scout Marines. So, let us lean on existum wisdom to gain the very basics. To quote, Scout Squads. Space Marine Scouts chiefly fight as skirmishers, relying on stealth rather than brute force to accomplish missions. Lightly armed and armoured in comparison to their more experienced battle brothers, they operate independently of the main Adeptus Astartes force, infiltrating enemy positions and clearing the way for the chapter's advance. When first inducted into a chapter, a recruit joins the 10th Company as a scout. He is placed under the tutelage of a sergeant who will lead him on the field of battle and instruct him in what it truly means to wage war as one of the Adeptus Astartes. Only once he has proven himself worthy by excelling in the ranks of the 10th Company will a scout be deemed ready to join the ranks of the chapter's battle brothers. A new recruit has much to learn and must endure many long months of grueling training regimes before he takes to the field of battle. Not only must he master the many biologically engineered enhancements that are at work within his body, he must also learn the litanies of battle that fortify him and become skilled in wielding his war gear. Not all recruits survive their training, for no quarter can be asked or given when forging humanity's finest warriors. Hundreds meet a gory end with each new wave of recruits, their shattered bodies left in unmarked graves. Those that survive are well prepared for their first taste of battle as a Space Marine scout. Operating deep within hostile territory, scout squads reconnoiter their enemy's movements, set ambushes, sabotage supply lines and destroy communication centers in daring commando raids. Sometimes they will pounce unseen to capture enemy commanders for excruciation, the better to gather pertinent intelligence. Above all, the task of the scout is to strike hard and vanish before the enemy has the chance to retaliate. Throughout their field training, the recruits are instructed by their sergeant, their actions guided, watched over and judged as they strike the foe with bolter and blade. The aspirants will grow proficient with many other firearms, learning how to snipe the foe with long-ranged rifles and how to demolish battle tanks with heavy weaponry. While acting as part of an infiltration force, a scout will become skilled at every aspect of war. He will learn that to be a Space Marine is to be death incarnate, no matter the terrain, the nature of the foe, or the weapons arrayed against them. Scout Bike Squads. During the final stages of an aspirant's training, he is deployed as part of a Scout Bike Squad. Scout bikes are employed as fast-moving reconnaissance and disruption units, booby-trapping neutral ground and sabotaging enemy resources. They operate on a longer leash than other scouts, often acting as a separate and distinct adjunct to the main Space Marine force. In this role, the scout bikers probe opposing positions for weakness, set locator beams for incoming teleporters, or launch surgical raids behind enemy lines while the foe concentrates on the main attack. Landspeeder Storms. The Landspeeder Storm is an open-sided variant of the Landspeeder, allowing it a moderate transport capacity. The resulting craft is the equal of its parent in matters of speed and maneuverability, but can carry a small squad of scouts without loss of performance. Furthermore, its baffled engines and sophisticated sensor arrays afford it a stealthy profile best suited to the Scouts' covert operations. Often ranging ahead of the main force, Landspeeder Storms can move into enemy territory unseen, making them ideal for launching surprise attacks. Thanks to well-timed Landspeeder Storm strikes, many a foe of the Imperium has lost a battle before they even knew they were in one. End quote. The aspirant who has been tested, tried, and found acceptable is then given many extra organs and goes through the change from human to post-human, from aspirant to Space Marine. They get larger, stronger, faster, but they are not yet full Space Marines, as we have heard. They must make many successful operations before they are given that right. But we shall explore what happens to them next very soon. I have been Voldemort, your faithful servant. I hope you have enjoyed this brief introduction to Scout Marines. If so, then please do consider liking and subscribing. If you do so, then please do hit the notification button, as I would not want you to miss out. Now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.